Brett Favre started 297 straight NFL games. Broken bones, lost family, none of it kept him off the field. For 20 years, nothing could stop him. Now something finally has, and he's facing it with far fewer people in his corner because years earlier, he sent a text that turned millions of Americans against him. The day the secret came out, most famous people get sympathy the moment they reveal a terrible diagnosis. Brett Favre revealed his inside a government hearing about money stolen from poor families. That single detail changed everything. The moment America should have felt sorry for him was the exact moment America stopped trusting him. On September 24, 2024, Brett Favre sat in front of the United States House Ways and Means Committee. He was not there to talk about his health. He was there to answer for a welfare scandal in Mississippi. The hearing was about federal money meant for the poorest families in America. Favre's name had been tied to that money for years. The cameras were rolling, the lawmakers were waiting. Everyone in the room expected a fight about dollars. Then, in the middle of his testimony, he said something nobody saw coming. He told Congress he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. The words came out as part of a statement about a failed investment. He said it plainly, in front of lawmakers and cameras. First, he mentioned the money he lost. Sadly, I also lost an investment in a company that I believed was developing a breakthrough concussion drug I thought would help others, he said. Then came the line that traveled around the world. I'm sure you'll understand why it's too late for me, because I've recently been diagnosed with Parkinson's. Think about how strange that is. A man does not usually announce a life-changing illness under oath. There was no press release, no sit-down interview with a friendly reporter, no carefully chosen moment surrounded by family. He dropped the biggest news of his life into a fraud investigation, and that choice decided how the whole world would receive it. The diagnosis had actually come months earlier, in January 2024. Favre consulted 5 different doctors before the answer was confirmed. 5 opinions. He wanted to be sure. He did not want to believe it. For 8 months after that, he kept it completely private. The public did not know. Most of the football world did not know. He carried it alone while his name was being dragged through headlines for something else entirely. Then he chose to reveal it here, in this room, about this money, because the room is the whole story. The hearing was about the misuse of temporary assistance for needy families' money. In Mississippi, people call it TANF for short. It is welfare. It exists to put federal dollars in the hands of families who have almost nothing. Families choosing between rent and groceries. A state audit found at least $77 million was misspent. $77 million meant for desperate people, gone somewhere else. And woven through that number again and again was the most famous name the state of Mississippi has ever produced. Favre had been named in a 2022 civil lawsuit connected to that money. The lawsuit came from the Mississippi Department of Human Services. So when the Parkinson's news broke, it did not break on its own. It broke inside the scandal. The 2 stories fused on contact, and they have never come apart since. Look at what he was actually confessing in that one sentence. He put money into a drug meant to treat concussions. He had taken countless concussions himself over a 20-year career. The drug never reached him. The company failed, and now he had a disease many people connect to repeated hits to the head. He said it was too late for me. That is a devastating thing to admit. On almost any other day, in almost any other room, America would have wept for him. But this was not any other room. The coverage hit within hours. NBC, ABC, ESPN, every major outlet ran the story by nightfall. The reveal drew coverage that mixed sympathy with suspicion. And that mix is the key to everything. Sympathy and suspicion arriving in the exact same breath. Favre was 54 years old at the time. He had been retired from football for over a decade. His final season came with the Minnesota Vikings in 2010. He had spent his post-career years back home in Mississippi, the state that raised him, Gulfport. Born October 10, 1969, the state that made him was now the state suing to recover money tied to his name. And here is the part that makes the disease land so hard. The man sitting in that chair admitting his body was failing, once held the most physical record in all of football, 297 straight starts, including the playoffs, the NFL record for a quarterback, a number so high it almost does not sound real. He had 3 NFL Most Valuable Player awards, a Super Bowl championship, 71,838 passing yards, 508 touchdown passes. He entered the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2016. By every measure that exists, one of the most durable players the sport has ever seen. That durability is exactly why the announcement hurt the way it did. This was the man who never came out of games. the man who played through injuries that ended other careers, the man they called the Iron Man, and they earned that nickname for him in blood over almost 20 years of Sundays. Parkinson's does not care about any of that. It is progressive. It does not respond to toughness. You cannot play through it. You cannot will it away. You cannot run one more drill and beat it. For the first time in his entire life, Brett Favre was facing an opponent that did not care how tough he was. And the public reaction split almost the second the news landed. Many people felt real sadness for the former Iron Man. They remembered the player, the grin, the grit. For them, this was the heartbreaking final chapter of a hero's story. Others could not separate one word of it from the scandal. They saw the welfare hearing in the background, and they could not look away from it. One person online captured that whole camp in a single brutal sentence. They said it was a shame his Parkinson's was being upstaged by him committing welfare fraud. Sympathy and blame colliding in real time. They have not stopped colliding since. Some people did defend him on the medical question, and they had a fair point. Parkinson's causation from football is not proven in his specific case. Plenty of people who never played a single down of football develop the disease. It strikes teachers and plumbers and pianists. Nobody can draw a clean, certain line from his career to his diagnosis. But the context was almost impossible to ignore. 20 years of hits, multiple documented concussions, and his own words in that hearing tied the disease to the drug, and the drug straight to the scandal. He built the connection himself, under oath, on camera. Now here is something his harshest critics often skip right past. No criminal charges were ever filed against Favre personally. The legal pursuit of him has been about civil recovery and scrutiny of his influence, not about putting him in a cell. He has denied knowing the funds were welfare dollars. He has denied any intentional wrongdoing. He says he believed he was helping his old school and pushing forward research that could protect athletes' brains. The state of Mississippi saw it very differently. And there is one more layer that makes this whole thing ache. He had been afraid of his own brain for years. As far back as 2013, Favre publicly worried about CTE and memory loss. He even spoke out against tackle football for young kids. He appeared in concussion awareness work. Think about that. The man warning everyone else about brain damage was quietly watching for the signs of it in himself. More than a decade before the diagnosis arrived, he already felt the storm coming. So the investment suddenly makes a different kind of sense. He did not put money into a concussion drug as a random business move. He had skin in the game in the most literal way possible. His own brain was the asset at risk. The drug was his insurance policy. The insurance policy collapsed. The risk came due anyway. But here's what the public still did not know that day. Favre gave Congress a single sentence about his disease. He did not give them the details. He did not tell them what it actually felt like to live inside a body that was turning against him. Those details would come later in a podcast, and they would be far worse than anyone guessed. Because the symptom that scares him most is not the one you are picturing right now. There is no constant shaking, no dramatic tremors like the famous cases everyone knows. It is something quieter, something doctors told him flat out they cannot fix, something that made him compare his own body to food. We will get to exactly what it is. Not yet. Because the bigger mystery is not the disease at all. Most people think Brett Favre's reputation was destroyed by Parkinson's. That is not what happened. By the time he got that diagnosis, millions of Americans had already turned against him. The damage was already done. The trust was already gone. And it all came down to one text message. 23 words he typed years before he ever knew he was sick. The single most damaging sentence ever attached to his name. To understand the tragic fate of Brett Favre, you cannot start with the disease. You have to follow the money meant for the poor. Mississippi is one of the poorest states in America. That single fact is the ground everything else stands on. Its welfare program, TANF, exists for one reason and one reason only. It puts federal dollars in the hands of families who have almost nothing. Families choosing between rent and food. Families living in the kind of poverty most Americans never see up close. What happened to that money became the largest public fraud case in Mississippi history. Not the largest sports scandal, not the largest celebrity mess. The largest public fraud case the state had ever recorded. And Mississippi has a long, complicated history. A state audit found at least $77 million was misspent. $77 million that was supposed to reach desperate people, sent somewhere else instead. And woven through that number again and again was the most famous name the state has ever produced. So how does a beloved Hall of Famer end up here? It did not happen overnight. The seeds were planted years before any headline, roughly between 2014 and 2019. Favre invested in a company called Favre and started pushing for a volleyball facility at the University of Southern Mississippi, his old school, the place where the legend of the kid from Gulfport first took shape. These were not lazy retirement hobbies. Texts from 2017 onward show his active involvement, including his own worries about how it would look and whether it was legal. Active is the word that matters, not passive, not distant, not a celebrity lending his name to a poster. He was working the phones, working relationships, working state officials with the same intensity he once brought to a 2-minute drill. The messages would eventually reveal a man buried deep inside, the machinery of how the money actually moved. And the volleyball facility was personal, deeply, unavoidably personal. His daughter, Briley, played volleyball at Southern Miss from 2018 to 2020. The building was rising while she was wearing the uniform. The project overlapped directly with her college career. Picture it from his side of the table. A father, a hometown hero, a man with more money and influence than anyone in the state, watching his daughter play for the school he loves. Of course, he wanted her team to have a great facility. On the surface, that is an understandable, almost sweet thing for a dad to want. The problem was never the dream. Fathers build things for their daughters every single day. The problem was where the money came from. Roughly $5 million in welfare funds were directed to that volleyball facility. $5 million meant for the poorest families in the state, poured into a college sports building instead. Money meant for diapers and rent and food, turned into concrete and bleachers. Now, to be fair to the full record, Favre and his wife Deanna pledged significant personal donations of their own toward the project. He was not only taking, he was giving too, and giving a lot. His defenders point to those pledges as proof his heart was in the right place. But the text showed something beyond donating. They showed pressure, steady, strategic top-down pressure from a man whose calls nobody in Mississippi government was going to ignore. Because Favre was not pushing minor officials. He was going to the top. The messages show him talking directly with former Governor Phil Bryant himself, the most powerful man in the state, the man whose administration oversaw the very agency the welfare money flowed through. Stop and think about what that kind of access means. A Hall of Fame quarterback lives in a different reality from normal people. Governors take his calls. Agency directors answer his texts within minutes. Doors that stay locked for everyone else swing open at the sound of his name. In Mississippi, Brett Favre was not just famous. He was almost a branch of government all by himself. The lawsuit would later frame that access as the engine of the whole problem. Not forged documents, not secret accounts, just fame applied steadily at the very highest level until the money moved. Then came the part that turned suspicion into scandal, the speech money. Favre received $1.1 million from a nonprofit called the Mississippi Community Education Center for speeches and appearances. He did not actually deliver. The nonprofit was run by a woman named Nancy New, and the money it paid him came from TANF funds, the same welfare pipeline feeding the volleyball project. Welfare dollars routed through a charity, landing in the bank account of a multi-millionaire Hall of Famer in exchange for appearances nobody can point to. Whatever the real explanation, the optics were radioactive. And in public life, the optics often become the verdict. When the scandal broke open, Favre paid the speech money back. He returned roughly $600, $0 to $1.1 million, across payments in 2020 and 2021. His side framed that as good faith, proof he never meant to keep money he was not owed. But the state wanted more than the original amount. It wanted interest, payment for all the years that money sat outside the welfare system where it belonged. Early claims sought anywhere from around $228, $0 to over $730, $0 in interest alone. Favre disputed the interest and dug in. That fight dragged on for years. It became one of the stubborn, legal embers still glowing in some form into 2026. Even paying the money back did not buy him a clean exit. Then there was the third stream of money, the strangest one, the one that haunts everything, Prevacus, the concussion drug company. The biotech startup later renamed Prevasol. Approximately $2 million in welfare funds allegedly flowed into it. Favre was the company's largest outside investor, a true believer with roughly $850, $0 of his own money on the line. And the text showed him doing far more than writing checks. They showed him connecting the Favre's founders to welfare officials, and even offering stock and influence to Governor Bryant. Sit with that full picture for a second. Welfare money, chasing a concussion cure, with a football legend acting as the human bridge between the two. Dangling company stock in front of a sitting governor along the way. You could not invent a more explosive arrangement if you tried. And remember why he believed in that drug so badly. His own brain was the thing he was scared for. The disease he would be diagnosed with later was already the thing he feared most. He was not just an investor. He was a desperate man betting on his own salvation. That makes the next part feel even worse. The whole thing exploded into public view in 2020. And it exploded with handcuffs. Arrest came down. Nancy New, the nonprofit director, and John Davis, the former head of the Mississippi Department of Human Services, were taken into custody. These were not small players. Davis had run the very agency responsible for protecting the state's welfare money, the fox guarding the henhouse. He would later plead guilty in related cases. New was a central operator of the entire scheme, the channel the money flowed through. And as reporters started digging, the dots connected in public. $5 million, a volleyball stadium, undelivered speeches, and Brett Favre's name surfacing in document after document. Media reports of the welfare to volleyball pipeline hit that same year. The dam had cracked. Then in 2022, the dam burst completely, and it burst directly onto Favre's name. The Mississippi Department of Human Services filed a civil lawsuit naming him, trying to claw back the diverted funds. The state that once worshipped him was now formally chasing him in court. That same year came something even worse than the lawsuit. The text messages went public. Investigations by Mississippi Today and the Mississippi Free Press, including a series called The Back Channel, laid the private messages bare, message by message, in order. Damning. Lawsuits can be settled. Allegations can be denied. But a man's own words, in his own phone, in his own phrasing, those cannot be unsent. And what those texts showed could not be unseen. This is the moment millions of Americans turned against him, not the diagnosis. Here is the message that did it, the most damaging sentence ever attached to his name. The 23 words, Favre, texting about getting paid. Asked if he were to be paid, was there any way the media could find out where the money came from and how much? His defenders read it one way, a wealthy man wanting normal financial privacy. Celebrities guard their money matters all the time, they say. Nothing strange about it. His critics read it a much darker way. They see a man who already sensed the deal would not survive daylight. A man asking how to hide where the money came from, because somewhere inside he knew where it came from. Either way, the question carried its own cruel prophecy. He asked whether the media could ever find out. The media found out everything, and then they printed his question as the headline. Other texts went further. He asked about brick and mortar workarounds. That phrase matters, and here is why. Welfare funds carry strict rules against spending on construction, and the messages show him pushing forward despite those restrictions. Think about what that detail suggests to his critics. You do not go looking for workarounds to a rule you do not know exists. You do not ask about brick and mortar limits on money you think is normal donation cash. The texts painted a picture of a man steering around obstacles, not stumbling through them blind. Through all of it, Favre's defense has never changed an inch. He has consistently denied knowing the funds were welfare or TANF dollars, and denied any intentional wrongdoing. His story is identical from the first headline to the latest filing. His position, stated plainly, is this. He believed he was helping his old school build something it needed. He believed he was advancing concussion research that could protect athletes for generations. Two causes any reasonable person would call good. Two causes he had every personal reason to care about. Funded, he insists without his knowledge, by the one source on earth that could poison both. That is his account. The state of Mississippi, the auditors, and a large part of the public weighed that account against his own text messages, and they reached their own conclusions. But here is a fact his angriest critics often leave out. No criminal charges were ever filed against Favre personally. The state's pursuit of him has been civil, recovering money, not seeking prison. The criminal convictions landed on the operators, Nancy New and John Davis, who pleaded guilty in related cases. The system so far has treated Favre as someone the money touched, not someone who stole it. His punishment has been financial and reputational. but ask anyone who watched his name curdle in public. Over these last few years, the hit to his reputation may be the steepest price of all. Some debts never show up on a court docket, and faced with that bleeding reputation, Favre did the most Favre thing imaginable. He went on offense. He filed defamation lawsuits against his critics, including Mississippi State Auditor Shad White, the very man whose audit had uncovered the missing $77 million in the first place. It was vintage gunslinger, down late in the game, pinned against his own end zone, and instead of taking the safe sack, he heaves it deep. Sue the auditor, fight the story, never ever kneel. Those defamation suits, like the interest dispute, became part of the long legal tale still trailing him into 2026. Loose threads in a story that refuses to give anyone a clean ending. And underneath the whole legal mess sit the people almost everyone forgets. Mississippi's poorest families, the ones the $77 million was actually supposed to reach. They never sat in on the text threads. They never met with the governor. Their money built a stadium and chased a biotech dream, and most of them probably never knew until the headlines hit. That is the ledger the public keeps weighing year after year against everything else Brett Favre has ever done. But to understand why this fall feels less like news and more like betrayal, you have to understand how high the perch was. You have to see what this man survived before any of this money ever moved. You have to go back to the car crash, the addiction, and the single most mythic night in football history. You have to go back to where the Iron Man was forged. For a full year after that hearing, the world knew the headline but not the reality. Favre had given Congress one sentence. He had not told anyone what the disease actually did to him day to day, what it felt like to wake up inside a body that no longer obeyed. The public knew he was sick. They did not know what sick meant. Then in September 2025, he sat down with Sage Steele on her podcast. A full year had passed since the congressional reveal. He finally described the disease in detail, and what he revealed surprised even people who follow Parkinson's closely. His version of the disease did not look like the famous cases everyone pictures. It was quieter, and in some ways it was crueler. Start with the symptom that dominates his daily life: rigidity, stiffness. His muscles lock and tighten, especially on his right side, the same side battered by 2 decades of football. Think about what that means. The disease is layering itself on top of old injuries. Joints that already took thousands of hits are now being squeezed by his own nervous system. His throwing side, the side that made him famous, that is where the disease dug in first. Then he gave the image that stuck with everyone who heard it. He said the stiffness makes him feel like a pretzel, twisted, locked into a shape he did not choose. This from a man whose body once did whatever he asked of it, on command, for 297 straight Sundays. Now here's the strange part. The part that goes against everything you expect from this disease. Unlike Muhammad Ali or Michael J. Fox, Favre has very few tremors. His hands do not shake the way the public expects Parkinson's hands to shake. When you picture the disease, you picture trembling. He mostly does not have that. That sounds like good news. It is not entirely, because the symptom that scares him most is invisible from the outside. You would never see it looking at him, and it is the one we have been holding back this entire video. He has difficulty swallowing. That is the symptom. That is the one doctors told him they cannot fix. And his words about it were stark. He said the swallowing problems feel scary because they cannot fix that. Sit with that for a second. Swallowing, the most basic human function there is. Eating, drinking, something the rest of us do thousands of times a day without a single thought. The man who once played a playoff game, hours after a seizure scare, now thinks twice about a glass of water. The toughest athlete of his generation, undone not by a hit, but by his own throat. That is the part of this disease he calls scary. Not the stiffness, not the records it took from him, the swallowing. Because there is no fix for it. No surgery, no rehab, no 2-minute drill. There is medication, and it does work for a while. Favre takes it every 4 hours. He described the relief in a vivid way. About 20 minutes after a dose, he said, "It is like a total new body." Imagine living on that clock. Every 4 hours, the stiffness creeps back. In every 4 hours, a pill buys him a window of his old self. A total new body. And then slowly, the clock runs down and the old body returns. His entire day is now built around chemical ceasefires with his own nervous system. And his weapon against all of it is the same weapon he used his whole career: work. Aggressive, relentless exercise, he calls it his new Super Bowl. That framing is no accident. Favre cannot let himself think of this as managing a disease. He has to think of it as competing, as training for one more title. Training camp never ended. The opponent just changed. The Iron Man is still showing up, still grinding, still treating his own failing body like a game. He can win if he just works hard enough. Whether that is brave or heartbreaking depends on the day you ask. In December 2025, he gave a fuller health update. The picture was mixed, but stable. He remained in the early stages, managing symptoms with medication and exercise. And there was real good news inside it. His thinking and his memory were holding steady. The fear that had haunted him since 2013, losing his mind, had not come true. The body was struggling, the brain, so far, was hanging on. That distinction matters more than it might seem, because his whole life, the thing he feared most was never the pain. It was the fog, the memory loss, becoming a man who could not remember his own story. And so far, that part of him is still intact, still sharp, still Brett. The body is losing, the mind is still in the fight. Then came the announcement that turned heads across the football world. In a TMZ interview that December, Favre said he is open to donating his brain after his death for CTE research. Think about the full circle in that one decision. He invested in concussion research with his own money. He bet nearly $1 million on a drug to study brain damage. The drug failed, and now he is offering that same field of research the one thing it cannot buy: his actual brain. The man who tried to fund the science is now willing to become the science. And even facing that, he managed dark humor about it. He said he hopes treatments are found before that donation ever becomes necessary. Then he joked that the study of his brain would not take long. It is a brutal joke. 20 years of hits, multiple documented concussions, a career built on absorbing punishment. He is laughing at the damage inside his own skull, but that is who he has always been. Even staring down a progressive disease, the gunslinger's grin never fully left him. But not every day brought a grin, and in January 2026, the story nearly slipped away from him. Reports surfaced suggesting he had given up hope, that the fight had finally gone out of him, that the Iron Man was done. His response was fast and unmistakable. He denied the reports flatly and said he is fighting till the end. He did admit one hard truth, though. The disease was progressing faster than he had hoped. He was not going to pretend otherwise, but faster than hope did not mean done. Not even close. He struck a careful balance in those January comments, honest about the decline, and still thankful underneath it. He admitted the progression while insisting on gratitude. And then he delivered the line that could double as his life's motto: "No way in hell am I giving up." Anyone who watched him play in the 90s heard that sentence in a familiar voice. The same voice that threw into triple coverage and grinned about it. The same voice that played the night after his father died. That voice has not changed. The disease has not touched it. So, as of early and mid-2026, that is where the battle stands. Early stages, medication every 4 hours, exercise treated like religion, stiffness and rigidity dominant on his right side, swallowing difficulties, some tremors, stable memory, stable thinking. A progressive disease moving quicker than he wanted it to. A daily war fought in 4-hour pieces with no final whistle, scheduled. And the legal shadow has not lifted either. Civil matters from the scandal persist in some form. Interest disputes and the defamation suits Favre himself filed against critics like State Auditor Shad White. So even now, 2 battles run, side by side, one against his nervous system, one in the courts. Neither one has a clean ending in sight. There has even been recognition for him, complicated like everything else in this story. Favre received a humanitarian award mention, tied to his post-career concussion advocacy work. To some people, that advocacy is genuine and important. He warned parents about youth tackle football years before his own diagnosis. He used his name to push brain safety when almost nobody famous would. To others, that same advocacy is forever stained by where some of the research money came from. The same act looks noble or hollow, depending entirely on who is looking. And that is the trap this man cannot escape, because the disease story you just heard earns sympathy on its own terms. A legend losing control of his own body, a man facing the exact damage he spent years warning the world about. By itself, it is heartbreaking. By itself, it would make anyone feel for him. But the public has never once been allowed to feel that sympathy cleanly. Every health update arrives, dragging the scandal behind it. Every mention of the swallowing, the stiffness, the 4-hour clock gets answered with a mention of the volleyball stadium. The drug he believed in, the one he told Congress was too late for him, was not funded by his money alone. Roughly $2 million in welfare funds allegedly went into it, money from families with nothing. So even his suffering comes with an asterisk in the public's mind, and that raises the real question underneath all of this. The one we still have not answered. Why does this fall feel so personal? Why does it land like a betrayal instead of just bad news? Plenty of athletes get sick. Plenty of famous people face lawsuits. Why does this one cut so much deeper than the rest? The answer is not in the disease. It is not even in the scandal. It is in the one trait that defined Brett Favre his entire life. He never quit, not after anything. And here is the cruel twist nobody wants to say out loud. That same refusal to quit may be the exact reason he is sick. The toughness that made him a legend is the toughness that kept him on the field, through hit after hit after hit. The streak everyone celebrated might be the thing now destroying him. His greatest strength and his downfall could be the same trait. We are about to find out how that is even possible. Because before you can judge the man in those text messages, before you can pity the man taking a pill every 4 hours, you have to meet the man who survived a car crash that took 30 inches of his own body, beat an addiction in his greatest season, and played the best game of his life one day after his father died. That man is where this whole tragedy begins. The making of the Iron Man. Brett Favre was born on October 10, 1969, in Gulfport, Mississippi. A Gulf Coast kid from a football family in a football state, raised in the small town South, where Friday night lights are. A kind of religion and toughness is the highest currency a boy can carry. His father, Irvin Favre, coached him in high school. The man who shaped his game was the same man who shaped his life. Hold on to that name. Irvin Favre comes back into this story in the most devastating way possible. But before the NFL ever learned how to say his last name, Brett's body had already survived its first catastrophe, and it set the pattern for everything that came after. In 1990, a car accident nearly killed him before the legend could even begin. The crash was so severe that doctors removed 30 inches of his small intestine. 30 inches, 2.5 feet of his own body gone before his professional career had thrown a single pass. Most athletes' stories would end right there, in that hospital room, with the surgeons and the tubes and a future quietly downgraded to nothing. Favre's story was just clearing its throat. He came back. He played anyway. That is the pattern of his entire life, set in a hospital bed before any of us knew his name. The body breaks. The man refuses to admit it. Remember that pattern, because it built everything he became. And decades later, it may have cost him everything he is now losing. In 1992, he landed in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and professional football was never the same. Over 16 seasons with the Packers from 1992 to 2007. Favre did not just play for the franchise, he became the franchise and the town. And you could argue, the beating heart of the entire league. You have to understand what Green Bay is to grasp this. It is the smallest market in the NFL, a frozen little outpost where the team is literally owned by the public and fans pass their season tickets down. In their wills into that snow globe of football devotion walked a reckless, grinning, cannon-armed kid from the Mississippi coast. The match was instant and total. The numbers he piled up stack into mountains. 71,838 passing yards, 508 touchdown passes, a 186 and 112 record as a starter later stops, with the New York Jets in 2008 and the Minnesota Vikings from 2009 to 2010 would close out the career. But Green Bay was where the myth lived and where it still lives. Today, the middle of the 90s belonged to him completely, in a way the league had never seen before. 3 straight NFL Most Valuable Player Awards: 1995, 1996, and 1997. 3 years in a row as the undisputed best player in professional football. No quarterback had ever held the league's top individual honor with that kind of grip. The crown jewel came with the 1996 season, a Super Bowl championship. The Lombardi Trophy, named for Green Bay's own sainted coach, came home to the town that had waited decades for it. The smallest market in football was champion of the world again, and the gunslinger from Gulfport had carried them there on his arm and his nerve. At that moment, Brett Favre may have been the most purely loved athlete in all of America. Keep that picture in your mind. It is the before photo of this entire story. But the statistic that truly defined him was not yards. It was not touchdowns. It was not even trophies. It was attendance. 297 consecutive starts, including the playoffs. The NFL record for a quarterback, a number so absurd, it almost sounds biologically impossible. Understand what that number means in human terms. Nearly 2 decades of professional football without missing a single start, through sprains, breaks, separations, concussions, and collisions that would put ordinary men in the hospital every single week. For almost 20 years, number 4 walked out of that tunnel. They called him the Iron Man, and he earned that name in blood. He was famous for his durability and toughness, often playing through severe injuries, and the legend grew. With every Sunday, he flat out refused to sit down. But here is what almost nobody saw behind the iron. The man was quietly coming apart. In 1996, the MVP year, the championship year, the very top of the mountain, Favre was secretly fighting a Vicodin addiction, hooked on the painkillers that made the streak possible in the first place. Think about what that means. The toughness everyone worshipped had a hidden price tag to keep walking out of that tunnel. Week after week, his body needed the pills, and the pills were quietly turning on him. The addiction announced itself in the most violent way imaginable. A seizure following, ankle surgery, the pills he was using to stay on. The field nearly took him off it permanently, and nearly took far more than that. He checked into rehab and spent 46 days facing the dependency head on. Then he walked out, returned to the field, and won the Super Bowl that same season. Read that sequence again. Secret addiction, a seizure, 46 days in rehab, a championship, all in roughly the same stretch of his life. The toughness was breathtakingly real. So was the cost. And the cost was only starting to add up, because the hits to his head were piling up too, largely unexamined, entirely uncounted. He suffered multiple documented concussions across his 20-year career, and those are only the documented ones in an era that barely bothered documenting them at all. This was a time when getting your bell rung meant smelling salts, a quick once-over on the sideline, and a return to the huddle before the next snap. Quarterbacks took free shots that would draw ejections and fines today. Playing through the fog was not just allowed, it was celebrated, and nobody on earth was celebrated for it more than Brett Favre. Every one of those collisions was a deposit into an account nobody was keeping track of, an account that would not come due for decades, an account that by January 2024 may have finally demanded payment in full. This is the cruel twist we promised you. The toughness was the cause. The very thing that made him a legend is the very thing that put him in that hospital chair consulting 5 doctors. The streak everyone cheered may be the streak that is killing him now, but the streak survived things far heavier than football. And the heaviest night of all is coming. December 21, 2003, the night that turned him from a star into something closer to a saint. His father, Irvin Favre, the man who coached him, raised him, made him, died suddenly of a heart attack. The next night, the Packers had a Monday Night Football game. The entire football world assumed Favre would go home to Mississippi, and not one person alive would have blamed him. Instead, he told his teammates he was playing, because his father would have wanted him on that field. What followed is scripture in Green Bay and legend everywhere else. 399 passing yards and 4 touchdowns. One day after losing his father, in front of a national audience watching a man grieve at full speed in real time. Grown men wept in the stands. Grown men wept in living rooms across America. The Iron Man myth, already enormous, became permanently untouchable that night. This is the moment people think of when they want to defend him. This is the night that makes the scandal feel like a betrayal instead of a headline, because you cannot betray someone you did not first believe in completely. And still, the tragedies refused to stop coming for him. In 2004, his wife Deanna was diagnosed with breast cancer, the rock of the family suddenly in the fight of her life. That very same year, his brother-in-law died in an ATV accident on Favre's own property, grief landing literally on his doorstep. Then in 2005, Hurricane Katrina tore through his family's property on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. The storm of the century ripping through the very ground he came from. Addiction, his father's death, cancer in his home, death on his land, a hurricane through his history, and every single Sunday without fail, number 4 still trotted out of that tunnel. These events hardened his tough guy image while quietly revealing the staggering physical and personal toll of his career and his life in the spotlight. Now understand what that toughness meant to the people watching. Favre was never loved for being polished or perfect. He was loved fiercely for being indestructible while staying visibly, messily human. He threw reckless interceptions into triple coverage and grinned about them like a kid caught sneaking dessert. He cried openly at podiums. He played hurt, played grieving, played broken, and somehow made all of it look like joy. He was the rare superstar who seemed like he would be just as happy playing in your backyard. Fans did not just watch Brett Favre, they invested in him, emotionally, across generations, completely. Packers fans named their children after him, which is exactly why the later chapters would cut so deep. The scandal, the texts, the betrayal, real or imagined. You can only be that wounded by someone you truly believed in. He finally walked away after the 2010 season with Minnesota. Retirement arrived around 2010 and 2011, closing the book on 2 full decades of consecutive Sundays, the most durable run any quarterback had ever put together. Then in 2016 came the inevitable coronation, induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Canton placed the Iron Man among the immortals, the bronze bust, the gold jacket, the eternal place in the game's memory. The story should have ended right there. Gold jacket, grateful speeches, decades of golf and goodwill stretching out ahead. That is the retirement the legend had earned. It is not the retirement he got, because retirement handed Favre a problem no defense ever could. What does an Iron Man do with peace? What does a man wired for 297 straight battles do when the battles simply stop? The answer, it turned out, was build, invest, and push. Because those were the only gears the machine had ever been given. In the years from roughly 2014 to 2019, he poured himself into the Prevacus investment and the volleyball facility push. New arenas for the same old motor. The relentless engine that produced 2 decades of consecutive starts now ran at full throttle toward fundraising calls, biotech pitches, and text threads with the most powerful officials in Mississippi. Hold that thought tight. You already know exactly where those text threads end up. And understand this, his fear about his own brain was never abstract. It was never for show. As early as 2013, Favre was publicly worrying about CTE and memory loss. More than a full decade before any diagnosis, he was telling the world he had noticed things, felt things, wondered things. He went further than worry. He spoke out against tackle football for young kids, an astonishing stance from the sport's ultimate warrior, basically warning parents away from the very game that made him immortal. So when Prevacus showed up promising a breakthrough concussion treatment, Favre did not see a stock tip. He did not see a vanity investment. He saw salvation for the athletes coming after him, and quietly, maybe, for the man in his own mirror. He became the company's largest outside investor, betting nearly $1 million of his own money that science could outrun the damage. Now run the whole reel back and watch the single pattern come into focus. The 1990 car crash that took 30 inches of his intestine. He played anyway, the Vicodin addiction and the seizure. 46 days of rehab, then a Super Bowl. His father's sudden death. 399 yards and 4 touchdowns the very next night. Cancer in his home, death on his land. A hurricane through everything his family owned, through every single one of them. He never missed a start. Not one Sunday in nearly 20 years. Brett Favre's entire identity was built on one governing rule. There is nothing that can happen to my body or my life that I cannot outwork. For 50 years, that rule never lost. Not once. Parkinson's is the first opponent in his entire existence that the rule cannot touch. You cannot play through a nervous system in open revolt. There is no 2-minute drill against a progressive neurological disease. No amount of grit unsticks muscles locking him like a pretzel, or fixes the swallowing trouble doctors cannot fix. And here is the cruelest part of all. The toughness itself may have been the delivery system. Every start in that sacred streak of 297 meant more snaps, more hits, more head trauma, more deposits into the account nobody was counting. The streak that made him immortal may be the exact thing now unmaking him. The causation is not proven in his specific case. Many people who never played football develop Parkinson's, but the man himself drew the line straight from his career to his diagnosis. Under oath, in front of Congress, he believes it, and his belief is its own kind of verdict. The same dark mirror holds for the scandal. The relentlessness that won 3 MVP awards is the identical relentlessness in those text messages, pushing officials, probing the brick and mortar restrictions, refusing to take no for an answer. Play after play after play, the loyalty that made him bleed for Green Bay for 16 years is the same loyalty that drove the volleyball crusade for his daughter's team at his old school. The audacity that threw into triple coverage is the audacity that texted a sitting governor about stock. His virtues and his downfall are not different traits. They never were. They are the same engine, the same refusal, the same Favre, just pointed in different directions with catastrophically different results. That is what makes the word tragic, the precise word here. Not a thumbnail word picked for clicks. Real tragedy was never about bad luck. It is about a hero whose defining strength becomes, by its very nature, the instrument of his fall. And Favre's lifelong, cellular refusal to ever stop pushing built the Iron Man. It carried him through a car wreck, an addiction, his father's funeral week, and 297 straight Sundays. And then it carried him, pushed past every restriction and every warning, straight into the worst chapter of his life. So the only question left is the one America still cannot answer. After everything you have just heard, the glory and the grief, and the money and the disease, what is the final verdict on Brett Favre? The country has been arguing about it ever since, and it cannot agree. The verdict America can't agree on. Open social media on any Brett Favre health update, any day of the week, and you can watch the war play out live in the replies. It never takes more than 3 or 4 comments before the 2 Americas show up. The one that mourns him, and the one that prosecutes him. Stacked right on top of each other in the same thread, arguing past each other, neither side willing to give an inch. One camp leads with respect. Their tributes follow a familiar shape. They point out that Favre took vicious hits, never missed a start, and now sadly has Parkinson's. These are the fans who remember December 2003, who remember the streak, the snow games, the grin. For them, the diagnosis is the heartbreaking final chapter of a warrior's story, and anything less than sympathy feels like sacrilege. His "no way in hell am I giving up" quotes get passed around these circles like rally cries. Proof that the gunslinger they grew up worshiping is still in there, still slinging, still refusing to kneel. The other camp refuses, absolutely refuses, to let the scandal leave the room. No health update is sad enough. No symptom is scary enough. Nothing buys him a single thread free of the words welfare and volleyball. For this camp, sympathy without accountability is just amnesia with better manners. And their jokes are brutal. They spread fast. One person shared their girlfriend's line that Favre's diagnosis was a disease that makes him steal from the poor. Cruel without question. But the fact that a line like that travels at all tells you how deep the wound to his reputation runs. The mockery, the irony, the open glee at his downfall make up a significant chunk of the online conversation. Uncomfortable to catalog, impossible to deny. Every tribute thread gets a reply about volleyball stadiums. Every prayer emoji gets answered with a $sign. The 2 responses have become inseparable, exactly like the 2 stories themselves. Reddit, as it tends to do, boiled the whole collision down to single devastating sentences. The threads that followed the congressional reveal produced the line that may sum up this entire saga better than any essay could. Someone wrote that it was a shame his Parkinson's was being upstaged by him committing welfare fraud. Read that sentence again, because it is doing something remarkable. It holds the tragedy and the scandal in the very same breath, and it quietly admits that neither one can win. The disease cannot earn him clean sympathy. The scandal cannot fully erase the sympathy either. They just cancel each other out forever. Another commenter tagged him with a title that fused both identities into one: retired NFL Hall of Famer, welfare cheat. Hall of Famer, welfare cheat, side by side, comma between them, permanent. And the people who loved him longest are the most torn of all. Packers fans split right down the middle. Nostalgia for the player on one side, disappointment in the man on the other. For the people of Titletown, this is not a debate about some distant celebrity. It is a family argument, the hardest kind there is. Then there is a third voice, quieter, but persistent. It pushes back on the medical story itself. These defenders point out that Parkinson's causation from football is not proven in Favre's specific case, and that plenty of people who never took a single hit developed the disease. It is a fair scientific point, and it deserves its space. Parkinson's strikes teachers, plumbers, and piano players, not just quarterbacks, drawing a straight certain line from the 297 start streak to the January 2024 diagnosis is something no doctor in the research has done on the record. But here is the complication that camp cannot escape. Favre himself connected the dots. In his congressional testimony, he linked the career, the concussions, the failed drug investment, and the diagnosis into one continuous sentence. He framed his own story. The public did not invent the connection. They simply ran with the frame the man himself built under oath on camera. Move over to a place like Quora and the temperature drops. The tone shifts from emotional to forensic. Users there pick apart the scandal's actual mechanics. The volleyball stadium, the speech payments, the Prevacus funding, the texts that show his role, patiently trying to separate documented fact from internet rumor. The questions they ask are the ones serious people ask. How much did he actually know? How closely did he follow where the money came from? Where exactly is the line between aggressive fundraising and something worse? The tone there is more explanatory and curious than emotional. People seeking clarity on the facts versus the noise. Those discussions also weigh his brain donation decision, seriously connecting his case to the long, grim list of other former players battling neurological decline. In those threads, Favre stops being a punchline or a martyr. He becomes what he perhaps actually is, a data point in football's most important unanswered question. And that points to an angle nobody saw coming when this story began. Brett Favre, Brain Health Awareness Vehicle. Whatever you think of, the man, the verdict, or the money, his case has measurably raised public focus on CTE, concussion protocols, and post-career athlete health. His earlier public service work and his warnings about youth tackle. Football read completely differently now. Less like celebrity advocacy, more like a man describing a storm he could already feel forming behind his own eyes. He was publicly worried about CTE and memory loss as far back as 2013, 11 years before the diagnosis. He saw it coming. He said so. Almost nobody listened the way they listen now. And his willingness to donate his brain for CTE research after his death is praised by many as a genuine, lasting contribution to science. Possibly the one act in this entire saga that both camps, the mourners and the prosecutors, can actually agree on. Even national politics found its way into the story. Because of course it did. Favre has endorsed Donald Trump, and one interview discussed potential Parkinson's treatments under right to try policies, folding his personal health battle into one of America's running policy debates. In modern America, no story stays apolitical for long. And a story with welfare funds, a red state governor, federal hearings, and a celebrity endorsement never stood a chance. His health became one more surface for the country to project its existing arguments onto, one more lens through which the exact same man could look like a persecuted hero or a protected insider, depending entirely on who was doing the looking. The facts do not change between viewers, only the verdict does. Across all the platforms and all the noise, the reactions have hardened into four. Main narratives. The first is tragic irony. The tough guy now, facing a disease that attacks the most basic functions. The man who lost money on a brain drug while now needing brain solutions. The witness who revealed his diagnosis in a hearing about funds meant for the most vulnerable people in his state. The second is football's long-term cost. Favre as Exhibit A in the sport's slow, reluctant reckoning with what it does to the men who play it. His case amplifying every conversation about concussions, protocols, and what the league owes its retired warriors. The third is accountability and the fallen hero. The scandal as a permanent stain. The welfare cheat label. The influence peddling. And the fourth is resilience. The widespread respect grudging to glowing for his refusal to surrender. The exercise routine. The mindset extending his on-field persona into this final battle. Now notice the thing that makes this story impossible to file away. All four narratives are true at the same time. That is the genuinely uncomfortable part. You do not get to pick one and throw the rest out. The facts support every single one of them at once. He is the man who played the night after his father died and threw for 399 yards through tears. He is also the man who asked in writing whether the media could find out where his money came from and how much. Both of those belong to the same person, the same hands. He is inspiring people living with Parkinson's right now, today, with every defiant update. He also pushed for money meant for the poorest families in America to flow toward his own projects. Both ledgers are real, both ledgers are full, and no amount of arguing in any comment section has ever managed to zero either one out. Weigh the irony one final time, because it borders on the literary. He revealed the diagnosis in a hearing about diverting funds meant to help the vulnerable. He became vulnerable while answering for the vulnerable. The drug funded partly by the poor was meant to save brains exactly like his. And it saved no one. He lost his entire stake. The company failed. The disease arrived anyway, right on schedule, indifferent to every dollar spent trying to stop. It's too late for me, he told Congress. 5 words working as a confession, a tragedy, and an epitaph all at once. A playwright would have rejected this plot as too on the nose. Reality wrote it anyway. Meanwhile, far from the comment sections, the man at the center keeps living the verdict. One day at a time, medication every 4 hours, around the clock. The total new body arriving 20 minutes after each dose, then the stiffness creeping back as the clock runs down. Relief and decline, alternating like quarters in a game. Exercise reframed as his new Super Bowl attacked with training camp ferocity, swallowing the most basic act a body performs as his daily documented fear, thinking, stable, memory holding, body fighting, progression faster than he hoped. The streak continues. It just changed units. It is no longer measured in games started. It is measured in days survived, doses taken, workouts finished, and he has not missed one yet. The legal afterlife grinds on in the background, refusing him a clean ending. There either. The interest disputes from the repaid speech money linger. His defamation suits against state auditor Shad White, the man whose audit exposed the $77 million, remain part of the record, and no criminal charges were ever filed against him personally. The state's pursuit has stayed civil recovery and scrutiny of his influence. His defenders cite that fact constantly. His critics answer that the criminal bar was never the point. And beneath the entire legal machine sit the story's most forgotten characters, Mississippi's poorest families, the people the $77 million was supposed to reach. They appear in almost none of the threads, the jokes or the tributes. The scandal was about them. The conversation almost never is. So what is the tragic fate of Brett Favre? Finally, it is not just the disease. Plenty of public figures have faced Parkinson's and received nothing but love. It is not just the scandal. Plenty of fallen stars have weathered worse and rebuilt their names. It is that the two arrived together, locked arm in arm, each one making the other worse. The scandal stripped him of clean sympathy at the exact moment he needed it most. The disease stripped him of the time and health he needed to repair his name. Each story poisoned the other's cure. He must now fight the hardest battle of his life in front of a stadium that cannot decide whether to cheer, boo, or look away. For a man who spent 20 years feeding off the roar of crowds, that uncertain silence may be the cruelest symptom of all. It is also the tragedy of the myth itself. The one we built around him brick by brick, hit by hit. America made the Iron Man. We cheered the concussions in real time. We turned the night he played through his father's death into the holiest broadcast in football history. The story highlights the human cost behind athletic glory and Iron Man myths, the hidden, compounding price of the very toughness we demanded from him and rewarded him for, week after week, for 2 decades. Every fan who roared as he popped back up after a brutal hit holds a tiny, uncomfortable share of this outcome. The streak was a national co-production. The bill, it turns out, was not split, and it is a warning about power and proximity, one that reaches far beyond one quarterback. The case shows how powerful figures can use their connections for personal projects, with funds meant for the vulnerable, a governor who takes your calls personally, officials who bend schedules for your fame, doors that open simply because of who you are, and rules that suddenly seem negotiable on the other side of them. The scariest version of this story is not the one where a villain schemes, it is the one where fame alone was enough to bend a welfare system, and everyone involved told themselves it was fine. Yet somehow, through all of it, the fighting spirit refuses to be canceled out. Even his harshest critics, the ones posting the volleyball jokes, tend to pause at the image of a man in his mid-50s exercising through full-body rigidity, treating a progressive disease like just one more opponent on the schedule. The mindset that produced 297 consecutive starts is now producing something arguably rarer, a famous man offering an honest, unflinching, unfiltered look at neurological decline. The stiffness, the swallowing, the 4-hour clock, no filter and no self-pity. And if his pledge holds, his final play may be donating the very brain that absorbed all those hits to the science that came too late to save it, the gunslinger's last pass, thrown to researchers he will never meet. For players not yet born, the story is still being written, and that genuinely matters. As of mid-2026, he remains in the early stages, managing symptoms, fighting daily, calling himself thankful even while admitting the progression is outpacing his hopes. The legal threads remain unresolved. The disease's timeline remains unknowable. The public verdict remains hopelessly, permanently hung. And every new health update restarts the same argument in the same comment sections between the same two Americas. History has not decided yet whether the final word on Brett Favre is hero, cautionary tale, or some third thing we do not quite have. A word for maybe history is waiting, like the rest of us, to see how he finishes. And maybe that unfinished quality is the most honest ending available. Real life refuses to be tidy. It leaves the lawsuit open, the disease progressing, and the crowd still arguing in the parking lot. What we have instead is a man in Mississippi taking a pill every 4 hours, working out like it is training camp, telling reporters he is fighting till the end, and meaning it completely the way he reaction thread Reddit RNFL. Brett Favre shares health update on battle.